Hello! Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening whenever you guys watch this video. For today, I will explain you about employment contract between William Smith as an employer and Illinois American Water Co. as an employee. Before we dive for more info, my name is Nada Fikala Elisra. I'm a law student who study at Universitas Pembangunan Nasional Veteran Jakarta. So, without further ado, let's just go to the explanation. For the first section is the introduction. This section is to establish basic information about the parties involved. This employment contract formalizes the agreement between William Smith as an employer, which is located in Chicago, and Illinois American Water Co. as an employee, which is located in Peoria. Effectively start from 3rd May 2019. This section determines the position of VERT, which is Marketing Manager. Second is performance of duties. This purpose in an employment contract refers to the employee's obligation to perform the tasks, responsibilities, and work assigned by the employer. This section outlines the scope of the employee's role within the organization, specifying what duties they are expected to perform as part of their job. Typically, this clause clarifies 1. Job responsibilities. The specific tasks or responsibilities the employee is expected to handle in their role. Second, standards of performance. Expectation regarding how the duties should be performed, including quality, efficiency, and adherence to company policies. The last one is scope of work. Sometimes this section may also leave room for flexibility, allowing the employer to adjust duties as needed within the general framework of the role. It basically lays down the fundamental tasks that the worker must perform in order to receive payment, making sure that everyone is aware of what is expected of them. Next one is duties and responsibilities. This section lists the precise duties and responsibilities that an employee is expected to carry out in their position. It makes accountability clear, establishes performance standards, and specifies the job scope. This section allows for some flexibility in modifying work as needed while also ensuring that the employer and employee have a clear knowledge of job obligation. In an employment contract, the compensation and benefits section describe the employee's pay, salary, and any other benefits to which they are entitled as part of their job. In summary, the compensation and benefits section guarantees that the worker is aware of their entire pay package, which consists of both monetary and non-monetary benefits. An employment contract's confidentiality clause mandates that the employee maintain the privacy of sensitive company information. During and after employment, it safeguards the employer's trade secrets, sensitive data, and other private information. The provision establishes what data must be kept private and guarantees that it won't be abused or disclosed to unapproved parties. Next one is termination of an employment contract. It's the end of an employee's relationship with their employer. It can be voluntary or involuntary and can occur for a number of reasons. Number 1. Voluntary termination. The employee decides to leave the company on their own terms. Number 2. Involuntary termination. The employer removes the employee from their job, often for reasons beyond the employee's control. This can happen when the company downsizes, makes layoffs, or fires an employee. Number 3 is mutual termination. Both the employee and the employer agree to end the employment relationship. Number 4 is retirement. The employee retires from the company. So, if an employer terminates an employee, they should consider the following to avoid litigation. Number 1 is provide a valid reason for the termination. Number 2, give the employee advance notice. Number 3 is allow the employee to appeal the decision. Number 4 is pay the employee all benefits and severance pay. And if an employee and their employer mutually decide to end the employment relationship, they can do so with a settlement agreement. The next one is notice. The notice section in an employment contract outlines how official communications such as termination or other important matters should be delivered. It specifies the methods of delivery, the notice period required, the address for sending notice, and when notice become effective. This ensures proper and legally binding communication between the employer and employee. Next is compliance with employer's rules. The compliance with employer's rules clause in an employment contract requires the employee to follow the company's policies, procedures, and rules. It ensures that employees adhere to workplace guidelines, legal standards, and ethical behavior, and agree to comply with any updates to these rules during their employment. Next one is the return of employer property. This section clause in an employment contract requires the employee to return all company property such as equipment, documents, and assets when their employment ends. This ensures the employer retains control over its resources and prevents misuse or loss of company property. Next is social media ownership and ownership of intellectual property. A social media ownership clause in an employment contract defines who owns social media accounts and content created during work. Company accounts and content created for a business purpose are typically owned by the employer, while personal accounts remain with the employee. The clause may also include restrictions on sharing confidential information and post-employment use of company accounts, ensuring the employer retains control over business-related social media. Next one is ownership of intellectual property. In this section, employment typically means the employer owns creations made by the employee during work hours or as part of their job. This includes patents, copyrights, and trademarks. However, if an employee creates something outside of their work duties, they may retain ownership unless the contract states otherwise. Contracts often specify that employees transfer rights to the employer for any work created during employment. It's important for both employers and employees to understand IP ownership to avoid disputes over invention or creative work. The entire agreement. This clause in an employment contract states that the signed contract is the full and final agreement between the employer and employee, overriding any prior discussions or agreements not included in the document. The contract signature confirms that the both parties agree to and accept the terms, making the contract legally binding. And the last one is closing or employment contract signature. Both the employer and the employee sign the employment contract as a formal agreement indicating their acceptance of its terms and conditions. With both parties agreeing to follow its conditions, the contract becomes legally binding upon their signings. Usually, David, the contract may also contain electronic signatures, which are acceptable as long as they comply with legal standards. And that is the explanation of an employment contract. I hope this can help you, and I'm so sorry if there are any mistaken words. And yeah, bye. See you next time.